Good evening and welcome to the NewsHour Agenda. Madhavdas GK. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's India trip for the G20 Summit was nothing short of a disaster. First, the Canadian leader was snubbed by India, and then the technical snag in his plane grounded him for over 36 hours. He eventually took off from Delhi this afternoon, with Union Minister Rajiv Chandrasekhar even seeing him off. But the turbulence for the Canadian Prime Minister might not be over yet, as back home, he's likely to be greeted with a barrage of criticism over his visit. The Canadian media already took snide pot shots at Trudeau, with the country's leading newspaper, the Toronto Sun's front page headline reading, "This way out. Trudeau finds he has few friends at the G20 Summit in India." Opposition leader Pierre Poilievre has also tweeted, and I quote, "Putting partisanship aside, no one likes to see a Canadian Prime Minister repeatedly humiliated and trampled upon by the rest of the world." The opposition Conservative Party also mocked Trudeau, saying that the clown show has been grounded in India. When in India, Trudeau found himself snubbed, hardly featuring in any of the engagements. He wasn't at the dinner for the G20 leaders, and while PM Modi held bilateral meetings with around 15 heads of nations, with Trudeau, it was just a pull-aside meeting. And in that meeting too, the Prime Minister spoke tough on Khalistan, expressing strong concerns about continuing anti-India Khalistani activities in Canada, including violence against Indian diplomats being threatened, as well as threatening the Indian community and their places of worship. In fact, while Trudeau was in India, Khalistani extremist organization Sikhs for Justice organized a Khalistan referendum in Surrey. Khalistani separatist and SFJ founder Gurpatwant Singh Pannoon was seen at the demonstration, making an insightful speech and calling for the balkanization of India. This explains pretty much why he was cold-shouldered in India. And when asked about the growing the Khalistani menace, his defense was, "Canada will always stand for freedom of expression." Listen in.
Two issues you didn't mention. One that has been reported by the Indian media, quoting Indian government sources who say Prime Minister Modi spoke to you about the presence, in his terms, of Sikh Khalistani militants in Canada. And the second is the question of interference in Canada by India, which has been cited by Canada's own intelligence agencies. Did neither of those topics come up?
No, they both came up over the years with Prime Minister Modi. We've had many conversations on both of those issues. Obviously, Canada will always defend freedom of expression, freedom of conscience, freedom of peaceful protest. That's something that's extremely important to us. At the same time as we're always there to prevent violence, to push back against hatred. I think on the issue of the community, it's important to remember that the actions of the few do not represent the entire community or Canada. The flip side of it, we also highlighted the importance of respecting the rule of law, and we did talk about foreign interference.
The foreign media too mocked Trudeau. Reuters headline read that Modi scolds Trudeau over Sikh protests in Canada against India. Bloomberg's headline was, "Trudeau is stuck in India with faulty aircraft after hearing criticism from Modi." The question is, will this humiliation end Trudeau's bromance with K-goons? While India has expressed concerns on various occasions over Canadian government giving a free run to Khalistanis, on the 7th of June, a parade float depicting the late Prime Minister Indira Gandhi's assassination was taken out in Brampton. Just yesterday, the anti-India referendum was held in the Surrey Gurudwara, and today Sikhs for Justice has threatened an Indian ambassador as well.
ट्रूडो साहब को ये बात समझनी पड़ेगी कि जो भाषा वो बोल रहे हैं, जिस रास्ते पे उनकी सरकार चल रही है, वो वही भाषा है जो पाकिस्तान के नेता पिछले 30-40 साल से बोलते आ रहे हैं। और आज पाकिस्तान की क्या हालत है? वहाँ जो नॉन स्टेट एक्टर को जिस तरह से, एक तरह से कह लो कि साइलेंट सपोर्ट मिल रहा है, शय मिल रही है, जिस तरह से आज मंदिरों पे हमले हो रहे हैं कनाडा में, भारतीय एम्बेसीज के ऊपर हमले हो रहे हैं, तो उनको इस बात को देखना पड़ेगा कि वो कनाडा को पाकिस्तान के रास्ते पे ले जाना चाहते हैं या एक खुशहाल शांतिप्रिय देश बना के रखना चाहते हैं।
I hope and I pray and I certainly assert, I hope our government took in no uncertain terms the issue of the anti-India sentiment that's rising amongst the pro-Khalistani forces in Canada. I hope our government asked the Canadian head of state why were floats of Mrs. Gandhi's assassination being taken out in Canada. Those are the issues that matter to me.
You're watching the News Hour at 10, debate number 1 on Times Now, Super Prime Time.
Let's take this across to our guest. Joining us with us is Ashok Sajjanhar, former ambassador, joining us on the broadcast. We also have Dr. Anand Raghunathan, author, with us. Prabodh Singh is a political analyst, joining us live. We also have with us Deepak Punj, who is a radio journalist from Canada. Also with us is Prabjeet Singh Grewal, member of the Liberal Party. Sanjay Jha, author, joins us on the broadcast. Let me start first and foremost with Prabodh Singh. Prabodh Singh, you know, it's not one or two incidents. There are a series of incidents that we've seen over the last few years happen when it comes to Canada. And, you know, it's one thing for Mr. Trudeau to say that, you know, we are liberal, etc. But here are individuals who are threatening violence. In some cases, even carrying out violence. And the government is turning a blind eye.
You're right, Madhav. You know, first of all, Canada needs to realize that the seeds of poison are being sown in their own land. And unfortunately, given the way things are going, it appears that innocents in Canada are the ones who are going to be paying the price for this. So this referendum, this monkey business that is going on in the name of referendum, Canada only represents a small fraction of Sikhs around the world. And if Canada allows this monkey business in the name of referendum to go on the way they are letting it go on, it is not going to do any good to Canada. You know, it's not going to do good to India, to the world, but Canada must be worried about its own plans on how it plans to deal with these people. These people who are indulging in violence against the Indian diplomatic missions. Canada needs to answer is do these acts represent the Canadian values?
Right.
You know, Indians in India wishes well for Canada. But when we wish well for Canada, it is in that same spirit that we ask them to put an end to this nonsense going on in the name of the referendum.
Right. Let me bring in Prabjeet Singh Grewal, member of the Liberal Party. Mr. Prabjeet Singh Grewal, obviously you're a supporter of Mr. Trudeau. But what is very, very bizarre is that why are these activities being tolerated? What is the crackdown, for instance, on those individuals who've carried out acts of violence? Attacks on journalists are taking place. There are those who are threatening to attack diplomatic, officials. You know, what's going on? Why is the government soft pedaling?
Well, I think that any government in Canada has this policy that they want to have people a freedom of speech, and they just don't want to do it what other countries suggest them also. But we are a Commonwealth country. We have always, Canada has always, doesn't matter what government was running the country at that time, they've always welcomed refugees, people in need, in dire state needs. But, you know, yes, one issue India media has brought up, and I think which is okay. Like it's the event is being done in India, so there are all the leaders over there. The snap part was not very a fair thing for any prime minister of any country, because I think India is a very upcoming country, and they are saying that the economy is rising. They should focus in make in India.
Sir, why I find this surprising, sir, Mr. Prabjeet, I'm sorry I'm interrupting you there.
Yes.
Is that Rishi Sunak had no problem criticizing Khalistani elements on his own soil. At least there has to be a recognition that this is wrong. Here you have AK-47s being posters put up in schools, all sorts of threats on diplomats. I mean, this is not just a peaceful protest. If you're threatening to attack diplomats, sir, how can you call this freedom of expression?
That's how you look at it, because I'm living here. People say things.
I'm not saying I'm not for them, I'm not against them either.
No, but the action has to be taken if there is rule of law. You believe in rule of law, that's what Mr. Trudeau also said. So what is the legal action that has been taken?
Well, sir, it cannot be taken in one day or 1 second, because again, they have to have enough proof to go after these people. And I am just...
A threat of violence is not enough cause of action, according to you. Just threatening violence is okay. You can go around threatening people. The police will look at the other side.
Sir, don't put words in my mouth.
No, that's what you're implying.
You are the one who's saying, no, sir, you are the one saying that. I never said that. Number one. Number two, yes, any government would have been, even opposition or something like that. But you never seen some other headlines in the Toronto or even in BC that they are talking about that he was not treated very well. Mr. Trudeau was not treated very well in India.
Yeah. The Toronto Sun also said that he has no friends. In fact, Deepak Punj, I want you to respond to what Prabjit Singh Grewal is saying. Because he says that this is a difference of interpretation here in India. How do we interpret it differently? You've also been at the receiving end of one of the acts of violence, I understand. Would you like to tell Mr. Prabjit Singh Grewal what happened in your case?
Yes, like I'm a radio host, as Mr. Grewal knows. I was about to start my daily radio show, and three people who were like, they told me like they are pro-Khalistanis, and they were there inside my studio, tried to kill me with a gun. It was a big act of violence, and no arrest has been made. And also, I want to remind Mr. Prabjit Grewal, as he's take a stand on the freedom of speech and expression, then what happened? Where was the freedom of expression when freedom convoy happened in Ottawa? All those truckers, Mr. Prime Minister Trudeau and Jagmeet Singh, he declared emergency, and all those freedom convoys, many of the leaders were behind the bars, they were detained. A lot of things happened. And also, let me remind you, G20 happened in Canada, and there were lathi charge on the people on the street. In the streets, there were so many people. They were against G20 meeting in Toronto, and like even some of them, the cases are going on in the courts in Canada. So
all right, Prabjit Singh Grewal, what about the freedom of speech of the person sitting over here, Deepak Punj, and what action was taken when the float of Indira Gandhi was put up? India raised this matter diplomatically when this celebration of Khalistani terrorism and the tableau showing Indira Gandhi being assassinated was put out in Brampton. What action was taken there, sir?
Okay, it was a float set up by someone, and I didn't see it because I was not present at that, because I was out of town that day. But all I'm saying is Mr. Punj also runs a radio show over here, and he has a freedom of speech to say anything against Trudeau or Liberals or PC party or NDP or anything like that.
And Khalistan supporters have the freedom to attack him also, threaten him with a gun in his studio. That's also part of freedom of speech.
Sorry?
So Khalistan supporters are threatening him, applying to attack him with a gun. That is also part of freedom of speech, according to you.
Well, it has also happened with Khalistani. I don't know what Khalistan is being done. Look, the referendum was started in UK, and it was supported by UNO, and it was done in Italy and many other countries.
It was done by UNO. Ashok Sajanar, that's news to me. That's really news to me. I mean, I consider myself not very well informed about diplomatic affairs. Please enlighten me, sir. Mr. Ashok Sajanar, has the UNO formally recognized this referendum? Please enlighten all of us.
No, not at all. Meaning this is, I think, an attempt to spread inaccurate, incorrect, some sort of a fake news. The United Nations doesn't get involved in that. This is the first time I'm hearing of it. And, obviously there is no factual basis for this. But, to come back to the issue that we're discussing, I think the world over, wherever this problem has arisen, the world leaders have recognized it and promised to take action against such elements. In speech, we've seen Prime Minister Albanese of Australia. The matter was taken up with him here in India when he was visiting, and he said out loud and clear to everyone that his government will ensure that nothing of this sort happens. And even when the Prime Minister was visiting Australia, then also it was mentioned very clearly, stated by him very clearly, that action would be taken against such elements and those who are going around defacing temples and gurdwaras and other places. But here, I think in terms of the threats that are being given in Canada, that's the most serious of them all. But the first issue, Madhav, is that this problem has to be recognized by the leaders. If it is not, even if that acceptance is not there, how will action come? You say you equate that with the freedom of speech, etc. It is just a facade. It is a hypocrisy. It is doublespeak. And, people who are threatening such actions, they have to be dealt with summarily. Action has to be taken against them. Otherwise, as I think you said very rightly right at the beginning, it is harmful for peace, stability, and security in the world. But most harmful it is for that country concerned. It's most harmful for Canada. And I think, but this is, at times vote bank politics completely blinds individuals and so-called leaders.
Vote bank politics. Ranjit Singh Grewal, is that what the Liberal Party is doing? Is that what Mr. Trudeau is doing? Because we know that there are, and he's dependent on certain leaders, and perhaps because they are supporters of Khalistan, he's soft peddling. Because clearly repeated incidents that have embarrassed him diplomatically. We all know what happened when Atwal was invited last time round to the Canadian High Commission here in New Delhi. And there's a very clear pattern in Mr. Trudeau's actions. It's not today, but a long history of it.
A very diverse population we have in Canada, okay? So I have never seen in any country how much diverse, like maybe 200-300 countries people are living in Canada. So everyone is entirely different in their thinking, and they bring that thinking along with them. And I mean, no government can just corner some particular community and say, okay.
It's not about the community, sir. It's about the supporters of violence. Do the other communities also have people amongst them who threaten violence?
Sir, I beg to state that lot of Sikhs living here are participating very highly into the North American economy.
That's very good.
We are working very hard.
That's very good. It's only a question about police action not being taken against those who are engaging in violence that we're asking. Obviously, we are not saying that there has to be any action on all Sikhs. Obviously, this is not about the community. This is only about those who are threatening violence and terror. And unfortunately, there are no answers coming in. Let me bring in Sanjay Jha. Sanjay Jha, here you have a situation where I'm sure, I mean, you're a suspended congressperson, but end of the day, we are all Indians. When an Indian Prime Minister is depicted so poorly on a float in a place like Brampton and no action is taken by the government over there, doesn't that make you or make your blood boil as a citizen of this country?
Madhav, I think the relationship between Canada and India is extremely tense and tenuous. And I think India has a very legitimate ground to be concerned about the separatism happening in Canada. And, I would just like to remind everybody that in 1985, we are all aware of the bombing of the Air India Kanishk flight, which took off from, I think, Montreal in Canada. And over 300 people, died in that horrific, assassination that I would call it as a brutal assassination of people. And clearly, I mean, Canada has been a fertile ground for very disaffected elements who have exploited, whether you call it the political culture of, freedom of speech or whatever, I mean, these are like convenient ruses at a national security level. Every country needs to create a security architecture where you don't use your own soil to export hate or terror or violence. And to that extent, Canada has a huge responsibility. Mr. Grewal, as a member of Mr. Trudeau's party, can take a political stance here, and he's sounding partisan. But today in India, where we live, and we all know that Punjab is very susceptible even today. We all know that Pakistan is capable of sabotage and engineering trouble in all the cross-border states of India. I think India has a very genuine apprehension about Canada becoming some kind of a conduit for spreading hate against India, whether through the Khalistanis or through some other separatist movement. And I do believe that Mr. Trudeau has that responsibility as a head of state to give the confidence to the people of India, because we have been victims of the Punjab, the terrorism that happened to the Khalistanis in Punjab. Right. India lost lives. It destabilized our country for a while, and a prime minister got assassinated. So I do believe that the Canadian government has to really come up here and be more reassuring than they have been.
Right. Let me bring in Dr. Ranganathan. Dr. Ranganathan, end of the day, we are seeing all sorts of explanations coming in. There's freedom of speech being put out as an argument. Somebody will say that, we are misinterpreting what is happening on ground. You must have heard Mr. Grewal earlier. But the question at the end of the day is this, that it is also Mr. Trudeau who, as we saw in those pictures, and his own media is calling him out. International media has already said that. He appears to be somebody who's quite friendless today at the G20 Summit. And you saw him, walking alone, not talking to anyone. What's going on?
Good evening, Madhav. There are essentially two very brief points I'd like to make. Number one, you're absolutely right. The fact is that Justin Trudeau is doing absolutely nothing to stop the funding of secessionist groups in Canada who want to foment trouble in India, especially Punjab. Even Congress's Captain Amrinder and Manish Tiwari, whose own father was sadly gunned down by Khalistani terrorists, were angry at Trudeau. Remember how the captain, when he was the chief minister, had refused to meet even Trudeau's minister Sajjan for this very reason. And now the attack on our temples, our embassies, the making of these grisly, horrible kill lists, the tableau showing Khalistanis gunning down our ex-prime minister. And what does Trudeau do? He comes here and he gives patronizing sermons saying Canada stands for free speech and is working to push back hatred. I'm sorry, but kill lists featuring our diplomats are being made. Our consulates are being attacked with impunity. Khalistani referendums are being held. Kanishka terrorists are being released. While Trudeau watches all this silently, this is not pushing back on hate. But the fact is, Justin Trudeau, whether you like it or not, is the Rahul Gandhi of Canada. Both are unashamed, unabashed dynasts. Both jump into issues without knowing an iota about them. And then both leave it to their au-pairs to disentangle them from their ensuing mess. Heaven knows, Madhav, at times I want to hold them by their upper arms and shake them up like Ishar Kaka did Laka in Lagan and say, "Aise kaise galti ho gayi beta? Dhyan laga, dhyan laga." Par dhyan kaise lagaye? Forever with an eye on the vote bank, the Canadian Gandhi, much like his Chinese Gandhi counterpart here, is all revved up with Ekumkar bandana and Kirpan by his lip for the Gurdwara run. But to be serious, I don't believe in all this internal matter diplomatic bunka, Madhav, to be very serious. Just when we have shown some spine and told off Trudeau on the Khalistani issue, some, especially in the Congress, are now saying India's anger is being directed wrongly. Look, left to me, just 30 seconds. Any world leader should be able to talk on any matter pertaining to any country freely. Don't we want leaders of the other countries to expose China and its concentration camps that have interned 1 million Uyghur Muslims? When it comes to China, then how come all these people who are talking about Muslims being attacked in India stay completely silent? So yes, talk about any matter, internal or external, but for heaven's sake, Trudeau, read up on it before you embarrass even Justin Bieber with your ignorance. Earlier, Trudeau had displayed his monumental ignorance when he supported the anti-farm reform protests without realizing that our farm bills were all about giving farmers a choice, like what Canadian farmers have. That's how progress and development happens, Madhav, through evolution, Darwinian competition, through expunging monopolies and an overbearing state, through morally just capitalism. Trudeau has it in Canada. He doesn't want it in India. And now he's completely silent about Khalistani issues. So please look at the past precedents.
Okay.
He's been making a fool of himself for the last 3 years, not just now.
Okay, Sanjay Jha wants to respond to you on that. Sanjay Jha.
Madhav, I just want to put on record that I object to the brazen attempts at making crude, cheap and vulgar comments about Rahul Gandhi by Anand Ranganathan. I need
Please,
to strongly
tell me one criticism of Justin Trudeau.
Let me speak.
No, don't get personal here.
I did not interrupt you.
Do not get personal, by the way. You want to make your point and make a fool of yourself, you do it on other show. Don't do it here. I'm not going to be silent here.
Okay. Let's not make personal remarks. I think that's a fair point. Sanjay, object to the argument, not to the speaker. Let's keep that rule. I've said it many times on the show before. Let's not make a personal remark. But yes, if you are objecting to any of the remarks specifically, one second, Dr. Ranganathan, I got your point.
I'm addressing you.
Yeah.
Show me one remark of Rahul Gandhi against Justin Trudeau. One remark. I'll take back my words.
Sanjay Jha.
Okay. Anand, let me answer you in brief. You are allowing a man to get away by saying you're being personal when he's abusing Rahul Gandhi. He's making shameless, cheap, fake...
Mother, please, this kind of language
because he
can go well with Congress and suspended Congress people. But it doesn't augur well for your... Madhav, I ask again.
Sir, he's being critical. One second. Dr. Ranganathan, one second, gentlemen, let's not get into a side debate, please. Let's stick to the issue at hand. We're discussing a very important issue which has international ramifications, and here we are again, discussing party politics. My only request to Sanjay Jha, you have specific problems with what Anand Raghunathan said. Respond to those specific points. And if you want, you can expose him. I'm giving you the floor. But let's not go down these adjective route, because that clearly does not solve any purpose, especially when we have just a few minutes left.
Here is the fake news for your viewers. Times Now, with Madhav as a very responsible anchor, showed the Congress spokesperson Supriya Srinath,
Rahul Gandhi
was openly talked about.
Show Rahul Gandhi talking against Justin Trudeau.
Can you keep
One
quiet,
second, Dr. Raghunathan. Now let him make his point. What is the problem, Dr. Jha?
Yeah. So here is my point. You played on the program where Supriya Srinath, who's a Congress spokesperson, who's talked about why the Modi government needs to question the government of Mr. Trudeau on the issue of terrorism against India. And more important, we don't need lectures from BJP bootlickers, because Mrs. Indira Gandhi was assassinated by people during the Punjab.
I will not stand
No. Sanjay Jha, I don't know what you're trying to argue right now. We played a BJP spokesperson and a Congress spokesperson, and I think this is an issue where there should be bipartisanship, because clearly it's an issue that affects all Indians. It's an issue where all of us are concerned. Let's not try and divide our polity on an issue where political parties have made their points very clearly.
It is a bipartisan issue, and this man is allowing it to become some cheap personal slander.
So you can respond to him. You can respond to him without getting personal. That's all I'm saying, Sanjay Jha. That's all I'm saying.
Raghunathan gets away with murder because he has airtime.
No, not at all. Not at all. I am telling you, still, if you have something to counter him on facts, you're more than welcome to. But since you've already spoken, I'm going to get Dr. Raghunathan to respond to you. Dr. Raghunathan, very quickly.
And cut out the fake news.
Did I go personal? I didn't. So please, can you allow this dynasty doormat and lackey to be quiet for a minute? This is the same issue. Now let me go. Madhav, this is very unfair. This is very unfair.
Now you're making personal comments on him. Let's not do this, gentlemen, please. On national television, I'm requesting both of you. Let's not do this.
Madhav,
you both can debate without doing this.
No, please, Madhav, please be silent. Madhav, I asked a very simple question. Show me one remark or statement that Rahul Gandhi made against Justin Trudeau. His defense is that Congress spokesman has made.
I'm not obliged to answer
please
your
don't interrupt.
questions.
Madhav, I'm going to walk out if I have to.
Okay. Dr. Jha.
You're not there. He's
Sanjay
not there.
Sanjay Jha, you made a point. At least listen to the other side. At least listen to the other side. Sanjay Jha, you made a point. Now listen to the other side.
I'll call you out, Raghunathan. Now, game is up. The fraud game is up.
Fade him out.
Every time you're on the program.
Okay, Sanjay Jha, I'm going to count to three. I'm going to lower your fader after that. 1, 2, 3. That's it. Dr. Raghunathan.
Thank you very much. I just asked him, let me repeat, because now in silence, hopefully I will not be interrupted. I won't take more than 30 seconds. I asked, show me one statement that Rahul Gandhi has made against Justin Trudeau. There's not one single statement. Instead, Sanjay Jha comes and says that Congress spokesperson has made. By that same logic, Amit Shah had made a statement on Manipur. Why was Sanjay Jha and all his ilk but forcing Narendra Modi to talk about Manipur?
Okay.
This is the shameless logic these Congress slaves have.
Okay, we'll have to leave it there, gentlemen. Of course, this is a debate on which I really thought there wouldn't be any political fight, but clearly there is a lot of issues, and this is obviously an issue on which as well our polity is very clearly, our political parties perhaps cannot see eye to eye. But on that note, I'd like to thank all of you for joining us. Ashok Shaziner, Dr. Anand Raghunathan, Prabodh Singh, Deepak Punj, Ranjit Singh Grewal and Sanjay Jha.